Have you ever heard financial terms or concepts and thought, this doesn't make sense? Well, you're in luck. Welcome to Make It Make Sense, the podcast powered by Acclaim Federal Credit Union, where we break down the world of financial literacy. At Acclaim, our goal is to connect you to financial wellness, and this podcast is here to lead the way. Whether you're just starting out or looking to sharpen your financial skills, we've got you covered. Let's make it make sense together. Here's your host, Christy Smith.
Welcome to our second episode of Make It Make Sense. I am really excited about the guest we have today. It is Denise Wymore. To me, she is credit union royalty. She would not accept that title because she is so humble. But Denise was named by the CU Times as a woman to watch. And then 10 years later, she was inducted into America's Credit Union HERstory exhibit. She is a cheerleader for passion and commitment. She's the manager of the Small Credit Union Initiatives at Zest AI, a QSO. And she's proud to be a credit union lifer who started her career as a teller. Denise has spoke at lots of credit union leagues, and I first heard her at a management school that I attended. Once I heard her speak, I actually wanted to come back and really make a difference in the world. She is just a firecracker, and I am just excited to share her with you today. Without further ado, here is Denise Wymore, who is going to help us make sense of financial concepts. Denise, thank you so much for being on our podcast. We are so excited. I called you credit union royalty, and I even said that you would not accept that title because you're so humble in your intro. But to me, you're credit union royalty anyway. So I am just honored to have you on our podcast and to share so much wisdom with our members in our community. So thank you again.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I'll tell you, the thing I'm most proud of in my career was starting it as a teller, right? I mean, that was the most valuable experience ever because I feel like that's my superpower, understanding the ground truth of the grassroots of the organization, where members are. And I loved being a teller, loved it.
Actually, some days I think, maybe I should just go downstairs and work on the teller line. I just get so much energy from the members and their stories. So I can definitely relate to that. You've been in the financial world for a really long time. And, one of the things that I think we fail at and I don't want to just point to credit unions, but the financial industry in general is education. And, just really making, again, that's why we wanted to start this podcast, is making financial concepts make sense. And sometimes they seem scary. And so if we can just break them down into like simple, everyday, things that people can do and apply to their lives, I just think that it would, better the lives of our members and our community. So we're extremely excited about this endeavor. One of the first things, and this is one of the things that I was talking to Denise about, before we started recording is, during my first podcast, I thought, I've got to be perfect. I have to remember all these questions. I can't look like I'm reading. Everything has to be perfect. And then I realized I'm not perfect. And so I will be reading your questions and it will look like I'm reading because I can't remember all this. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you is, what's the best way to set realistic financial goals for the new year?
Yeah, so one of the things that I love about technology today that we didn't have in the past is at the end of the year, for tax purposes, you'll get a credit card summary. And I've had Amex forever and ever. I know it's not a credit union credit card, but American Express, because I used to travel a lot and it was a great credit card. And it was a great credit card for my taxes because at the end of the year, now you get this beautiful report and it's all color coded. And I'm a visual person, so I like the color coding, but it shows you your spending for an entire year by category. And that's extremely humbling and eye-opening because then when you look at that and you dig in and you start to see, first of all, it's kind of a stroll down memory lane of your year and your spending, some of it good, some of it bad, but it really helps you see where are you spending your money, right? And if entertainment pops up as a pretty big category, which many times it does, Then you go down again, the stroll through memory lane, and you look at those things and say, gosh, did I spend too much there? Could I be spending less? We had a lot of inflation last year, so naturally everything bumped up. But that's also a time to say, okay, because things cost so much more, what is the benefit? That going out to dinner is a big one for me because I live very remote. So it's a big deal when we go out to dinner now, but it's so expensive. And then you kind of weigh the cost of the experience versus I love to cook, and just making a nice meal at home. And that's a way to, kind of save money. So that's what I do. In fact, I just got the statement, just looked at it the other day, and I'm going to drill down and look at my year in review and where I spent probably too much money and where I feel pretty proud of what I did for the year.
No, that's excellent. And I'm very visual as well. And so I think that's something great. I always, I know we're still typing. I'm still a writer. I like to write things down. I like to keep track of things. And, with technology now, I probably shouldn't write down as much as I do, but I do still write things down. It just, for me, that seems permanent. When I write it down, it's permanent. So that's been helpful for me just to write down goals. And then I think sometimes speaking them to someone else is helpful too, because it's almost like makes you accountable. You're like, oh, I said that. I put it out in the universe. So I did read a brief story about this gym, and they would not accept new members in January. And so what they said was, no, we're not going to do it, because by the time we get all these new members, we have to take our staff time. We have to train them on the equipment. We have to set up their direct deposits. We have to see, whatever that payment plan looks like. And by the end of February, they're not coming, and it's just not efficient for us to accept members in January. And I thought,
that's bold. Yeah.
I have never heard of a gym that would say that, because I would think that January would be their heyday. But I did think about that for a minute, and I thought, that is very interesting that they just took a stand and said, look, we want people that are really invested in their health and using our facility. And so I don't know. I just found that story really fun, and I thought, interesting. I've never thought of that concept before. Can you share any strategies for staying motivated and tracking progress towards financial goals? That's kind of why I wanted to share that intro story, is because it is hard to stay motivated. Like you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then I can't. It's just time doesn't allow or whatever.
I'm so fortunate. When I was a teller, I had an incredible boss, Tom Sargent. And this was early 80s, way back when. It was a government employees credit union. And I was taught to teach the members, because I also opened new accounts, it's a small credit union, that when they came in and they wanted to open a new account, and they would give us their entire paycheck, and it would all go to checking, is that we always said, pay yourself first. And that was drilled into my head as a youngster, was pay yourself first. Even if it's $5, put some money aside. And as I grew older, I realized I've always paid myself first, but then I realized if I saw it and it was easy to move, so if it was just in my savings that was sitting right next to my checking account, that it was too easy to move. So now what we do every month, I pay myself when I get my paycheck, I pay myself first, but money goes to accounts that I really don't see, and it takes effort. And I deliberately have money at another credit union where I have no real access other than online banking, but I didn't get a debit card. I didn't get any of that. And so I put the money away, and if I don't see it, and I did electronic statements, so, I probably don't open those. So if I don't see it, I forget about it. And then I'm pleasantly surprised when I go look at the balance and go, good for me. And my husband and I, about, I think 10 years ago, we like to travel. We came up with, what were you spending a year on travel? And we're talking airlines, hotels, and some of it going to Europe. And we boiled it down to a monthly investment from each of us, an equal amount. And so we put money into a travel account. And then whenever we have travel, again, it's in an account I don't see. And so if we're talking about a trip, I'll ask my husband, well, how much do we have in the travel account? And he'll tell me, and it's always exciting. It's almost like Christmas. And you open up this present, there's a whole bunch of cash. You go, oh my gosh, we could take that trip. And so just those little pay yourself first. And I worked with a credit union consulting years ago that still had a computer system. And I don't know if yours can do this, but it had what we call suffix accounts. So there's savings and then there was suffix, right? And they did a promotion for children and they called it, what are you saving for? And it was to encourage children to help with their parents, like if they wanted the Xbox, which was the big thing, it was a couple $100-$300, that they would then have their children that got their allowance or babysitting money or lawn mowing, whatever, they would name the account. And then they could actually see the name of it, like when they pulled it up or it was on a statement. And that was a very popular promotion because, again, it was paying yourself first, but it was categorizing it. What are you saving for? And you get that reward at the end. It is so much smarter, to save for something ahead of time than how we're trained, which is that instant gratification with the credit card, right? And then if you don't pay it off that month, you have just now compounded. If you really look at how much that thing cost you, because now you're paying interest on it, it'll take all the fun out of it for real.
Oh, no, for sure. That's definitely that. And I just resonated with everything that you said because my husband will say something and I say, do we have enough money in savings for that? Because we have a joint account where we, like you said, we put money in it. I have no idea how much money we have in that account because it's I really don't want to know because I'll find a way to spend it. And, maybe I should go shopping this weekend, so I'll find a way to spend it, but I don't. And I'm not a big spender anyway. I prefer savings. And so I don't know. I don't, even Christmas makes me feel like a little anxious. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money we're spending, so I get it. I don't know. I get really anxious when I have to spend a lot of money. I'm a huge saver. But I think it's because I came from a position where I did not have a lot to save. Yeah. And so when I, came to a position where I could save, it became very important to me to have that as a backup. Yeah. So, some of our members, they're like, I wish I could save. I wish I had the money to save. And so, a lot of the things that we tell them is do what you can.
Do what you can. Even starting with $10.
Yes.
And if they are paycheck to paycheck, which I was for many, many years early on in my life.
I was as well. Yes.
Yeah. $10 a month, a paycheck, a week, whatever. I can remember sometimes where I had $50 to my name. And so if I had $40 somewhere else and you had a surprise expense, like a flat tire in a car or, a medical bill where it wasn't totally covered under insurance or whatever, just having that little tiny bit can make the world of difference to bridge the gap.
You're exactly right. No, I definitely agree with you. When we teach financial literacy with a local nonprofit in our area, that's one of the first things I tell them. Like, you have got to have an emergency account. You have to pay yourself first. Sometimes it feels like, I don't know, it feels like just like an odd concept, but I'm like, just do it. Just do it and just act like it's not there until you absolutely have to have it. So, no, that's really good advice. How do you recommend balancing short-term goals like vacations with long-term goals like saving for a house? My daughter is in a position where she's getting married this year. And so they're looking at housing, they're looking at rent, and they're looking at things like that. And she's like, Mom, how does anybody ever afford this? And you need to save your money. That's all I can tell you. Save as much as you can.
Yeah. And it's funny because I thought back, my dad always said one piece of advice I got from my dad was to buy a home as soon as you can. Some people disagree with this, but I bought my first house when I was 21 years old and it was a dump. But he said, as soon as you can get a home, because he said, real estate pretty much always has a history of appreciating in value. And that equity in your home, could be the easiest savings ever, right? Because, and what you would pay in rent, you're paying towards a mortgage, but you're paying towards ownership. There are trade-offs, the pride of home ownership when you need a new roof. There's lots of, you don't get to call the landlord when your plumbing dies, you've got to call. So there's kind of those trade-offs. But I did buy a house early on in my life, and it helped set me up for the equity in the home to either pay debts off or get a better home. But when I first had to save for a down payment, I didn't know, like, first of all, what could I afford on my income? And it wasn't much. And then I started looking at what I could afford, and it's like some scary neighborhoods in Portland. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and I didn't want to live in a scary neighborhood. So to get a nice home in a scary neighborhood was within my budget, but to get a dump in the neighborhood I wanted to live in was like a better investment.
Yeah.
And I buckled down because then I knew, okay, this is the house I can afford. This is what I need for a down payment. And I made myself save it in 6 months by just living like a pauper. I mean,
Yeah.
You realize how many things you can live without.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like,
I know how I understand.
Yeah, it's like you just live like you don't have money. And I was able to save, of course, this is, way back in the 80s when the down payment was like $10,000. And today I know it's a lot more, but we also make a lot more money than I did back then. But it was just about getting back to your statement. If you look at your debit card statement, I bet almost everyone here will find some recurring thing on their statement that they didn't know they were still paying for. It's too easy today to sign up for a streaming service or, Spotify or, whatever it is, that little thing, or it's the dumbest charge because I can talk to my device in my kitchen. I'm not going to say the name out loud because it will talk back to me right now, but I can talk to the device in my kitchen and buy things with my voice. Right. And one day I must have been in a mood because I paid like 99 cents a month to have a celebrity voice on my device. And I probably used it a couple of times. I forgot I had done it, but I was going through and looking at every single charge on my debit card and realized I don't even care about that anymore. And those $20, $15 purchases really start to add up. And so that's how I went from, the short-term goal of travel to the big, big purchase of a house. And then once you get in that house, and you've got that monthly payment, you've got all kinds of advantages, hopefully still with taxes, with the write-off, with your interest. But just that first house that was a dump, all it needed was TLC, just needed time, and it was a lot of energy to just paint and fix it up and make it beautiful. But in 5 years, I turned a $45,000 home into a $130,000 home.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And when that kind of money had incredible buying power. So
Absolutely.
That set me up for, today we actually have 2 homes. We have a guest home and then you get bigger purchases when you have a house. I'll tell a current story. Have you ever bought new windows for your home?
Not in a long time, but it hurt. It hurt bad. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we're in the process of doing that. And when the renewal from Anderson guy came and did all his measurements and, asking us what we want, of course, we want all these nice things. And he gave us the number. No, I won't even tell you the number. But what we decided in our minds in order to justify it, they had a 0% financing. Always take advantage of those.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. For 3 years. And what we realized was we have not had a car payment in over 10 years. And that's what people would pay for a new car.
Yeah.
Yep.
For
and
sure.
So in our mind, we were like, okay, we're buying a car.
Well, and just the energy efficiency with that too.
Yeah.
Having new windows and things like that. I think that was one of the biggest things for us is we were trying to figure out, we knew we needed it. And it's been a long time ago since I had to go through that process because I was just like, oh no, like there's no way, but it was needed. And once we did it, I was so glad we did. I mean, it was just, again, but you get that estimate and you're like, oh, I think I want to rent again. Like, I don't think I want to do this.
I know. Exactly.
I don't think I want to own
pride
this
of
house
home
anymore.
ownership. I know that's what I call it. The pride of home ownership when you get to pay for all the things you would have otherwise called a landlord. And a guy I work with, he's never owned a home and he's in his 50s and he has done that for that reason. He said, I don't want those expenses.
Yeah.
And so he's just, happy being a renter and not having, building that kind of equity. I hated renting because I hate white walls. I love
You like color, pops
I
of
love
color.
color. And that's one of the first things when I owned that dump of a house was I
Mm-hmm.
got to pick out colors. And back then
Yes.
wallpaper was the thing, and I did wallpaper in the kitchen, and oh my gosh, it was just so fun to have something you owned and fix it up, and
No,
then
I
move forward.
agree.
Yeah.
And my husband always tells me, some people can't see past what
Hmm.
it looks like,
Yeah.
and he has that amazing ability to do that. And so he's like, that house could be really nice, but there's a lot of people who won't be able to see past, and he'll name off a couple of things. And he's right. If you put just a little, maybe a little work, maybe you have to paint yourself instead of hiring someone or things like that.
Oh, the other thing I want to add, they always say that in real estate, location, location, location. Remember, I bought a dump in a great location.
Mm.
And that home today, any idea of how much that home, and it's 1,100 square feet, and it was built in 1908 in
I
Portland,
have
Oregon.
no idea.
680,000 is
Holy
that?
cow. Oh, that's fantastic.
That's location, location, location. Yep.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
If no one gets anything else out of this podcast
Right.
today, it's that. That is a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That is absolutely wonderful. So, what role does mindset play in reaching financial goals, and how can people shift their thinking? I do think there's, it does. We do play a role in what we prioritize and how we can advance different things forward. And financial priorities is one of those.
Yeah.
I know, and again, I don't. I'm not saying this to beat up on people, because I think it's all of us.
Mhm.
But we don't necessarily have to have Starbucks every day, or
Yeah.
there are expensive habits that we all have. You mentioned streaming, and I mentioned that in my previous podcast. Is I agree with you. I
Mhm.
think people pay for all these streaming services and they don't even know what they're paying for anymore, because
No.
it's been so easy to sign up for those things. But so what advice would you give for how to shift your thinking into that goal,
Mhm.
financial minded community member, individual member?
Yeah. It's funny. Money is a very emotional thing.
Mm.
That's one of the things I never took for granted working in a credit union is money. If you think about the emotion of not only your worth and earning it, the job and the pay, that kind of emotion that goes there. Some people feel like they're never paid enough. And then what you do with your money, there's so much about status. And, some people will feel like they deserve it. I deserve that Starbucks because I hate my job. Or, there's so much emotion tied up in money. When I was part of this Filing I3 research project, one of the groups was working on, I don't know if it ever went to fruition, but they had an app that was tied to like your debit card transaction, all the stuff you do every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that it gave you the opportunity to then, after the fact, like 24 hours after, to review what you had purchased and to kind of come to terms with the emotion around it, which I thought was genius,
It
because
is.
we've all done it.
Mm.
We've all, Costco, right? That's my word. Where you go to Costco and you buy something because there it is in the first, 40 feet that you walk into the store. They do that on purpose. And you grab it and put it in the cart because it won't be there in 2 weeks, right?
Yep.
And you grab it and it's such a deal. You don't really need it. And yet that's the kind of overspending or the unnecessary spending that you'll do is, again, so check the emotion. And I just did this recently. So I'm going to confess my purchase sin. I went to Costco right after Christmas. They had a pile, how they have piles of clothes on
Yes.
tables, of Pendleton jackets, like a rain jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm originally from Oregon, Pendleton, Oregon. Gorgeous lining. They came in blue, kind of rust and black. I put the blue one on. It fit perfect. It was $49. Come on. So I put it in the cart and I had my list, and then I was feeling guilty. I put it back. I went around the store, and of course it's kind of near the front. And then I justified it because then I missed it. I was like, I want that coat. But then as I'm driving home, I'm like, I'm thinking I have to hide it from my husband. I don't need another coat. I love coats. I'm a freak about it. So then you know what I did? I made myself go through all my coats, and I have a lot of beautiful coats, and you can only wear one at a time. And I donated 2 really nice coats to charity, to the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I thought, okay, Denise, you have to part with these 2 coats. One of them was almost new. I have a problem with coats.
I have a problem with shoes. I have a problem with shoes. I do.
Yes. But doing that, I think, I don't know if that answered the question, but just looking at the emotion, it's why when we bought these windows, we actually had the 3-day, what they called a cooling off period, but that 3-day right of rescission that you can back out of the transaction because it's big and it is tied to your home or potentially could be tied to your home. And I thought that is such a nice thing to do. Yeah. By day 3, I wanted to cancel it. To be honest, it was so much money. And Mark and I had a discussion about it. And he looked at it like, we'll do this once. We're not going to sell this home. This is our forever home, God, hopefully. And we need them, to your point, we really do need them. And so we stayed with it. But I like that kind of cooling off period where you could actually look at, why did I do that?
Yeah.
And I think, I think everybody has it. You buy stuff that you really don't need, but it could be just a boost psychologically that you feel you need.
No, I agree. My daughter laughs at me. I will walk around, I don't know, TJ Maxx, I'll use that as an example. And I'll walk around with something in the buggy or I'll walk around carrying it. And she was like, are you going to buy that or not? And I'm like, I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
That's your 3 days.
Yeah. I'm walking around. I don't know. I may buy it. I may not. I don't know yet, but I need to think about it. And I try to think about am I really going to wear it? Am I really going to get use out of it? Like, is it important?
How many outfits will these go with?
Right. Yeah. It's like, is it multi-use? Like, will I wear it to work? I mean, it's all these things that go in through. And she's like, and so she's kind of almost talking me into it. Like, you're going to get home and say, I wish I would have bought that. And I'll think, well, then I'll just have to miss out because so I have to really talk myself into buying certain things. And I'm like, yeah, I really need this and I like it and it fits well. So it's a no-brainer. But some of those things that I'm like, maybe I don't need it. Maybe I do. I'm going to walk around with it for a few minutes just to see if I can justify it in my head. Like you said, we're always just kind of trying to justify things. Well, and it is so funny. We all do that.
We all do it. Yeah. And here's the other thing that we never had before, because it used to be you had to get in the car, go to a mall, walk around. You spent a lot of time. I buy a lot online. If you're an online shopper like me, once you buy something from someone, you're either going to get a catalog in the mail or a barrage of emails. And they figure you out, right? Really, they figure you out. And it's only going to get worse / better. I mean, at some levels, there's a benefit to that technology. At other levels, it kind of feeds into the addiction, if you will. And during, Christmas, I was bombarded with 70% off. I love a bargain. I will not pay full price for anything.
Yeah, I won't need
And then it's too easy. If I've already bought, I click on the email, I click on the offer, it takes me to the website, I click on the item, I've already been there, it pre-fills everything, I hit the button and it comes magically Santa / US UPS guy, right? How many times have you gotten an Amazon box from UPS and come to your head, you can't remember what you bought?
Every week, in all honesty, because we get crazy stuff off Amazon. I mean, stuff that normally you wouldn't think about, but it's like, oh, we can get this cheaper and they bring it to my door. Why would we not do that? It is. It's too easy. And you're right. It's very convenient. And oh my goodness, we could talk forever about, the online addiction and how easy it is for them just to bring it to your door. And next day at that, I mean, oh, you want it? I'll get it to you next day.
And that feels like you think like, I didn't have to get my car and drive. I didn't have to hunt. It really, there's a great benefit to it, but it also, I think, makes people overspend.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I definitely agree. When you start looking at how much, Amazon, really, they're so smart. But if you really think about, you use Amazon. I probably would say the majority of the viewers of this podcast use Amazon. I mean, it is one of those things that we could pause and kind of look at and say, what are we doing?
That's a good, because on your debit, it's just going to say Amazon. But that's, you've got that orders tab. And every once in a while, I will do that. I'll hit that and look at what I've ordered. So there's an opportunity to say, you've got all these things in your home now, but you forget. And if your New Year's resolution is to kind of curb your spending, Amazon becomes its own little category that we kind of ignore.
It's true.
So go to your orders tab and look at all the stuff that you ordered in the year, and all the pictures will be there and all the memories will be there. But then you got to say, ugh. Oh, the other thing, Amazon, because they're too smart, things that you buy all the time. I mean, I buy my dog biscuits on there. That subscription, save. Hit subscribe. I've gotten in trouble with that because I don't know when I'm going to need dog biscuits again. And so I let it default to 2 months or whatever. All of a sudden, I've got 3 cases of dog biscuits in my pantry. And it's like, I really don't need that.
Right.
And so am I saving that much? I don't know. That's another thing that you need to. Oh, and how do you feel about buy now, pay later?
I am just, for me, I think that, for me, I like paying now. I don't like to put off things. Yeah. And so I would rather pay now. It gives me a little heartburn, to be honest with you. I just feel like that I would rather save and then buy it in full than have to have that lingering purchase that I have to pay for later. Not something that I particularly are a fan. Because I don't use it. I wouldn't encourage it for my family, but I don't know enough about it to say yes or no, or if it works or not. For me, I'm not a big fan.
And I looked into it because when it first kind of gained some steam, I was actually working for QCash Financial, QSO, that did that small dollar lending. And we were kind of looking at it. So I dug in to just see what really is it. Because I remember way back in the day, we had layaway.
Right.
Layaway was like you literally went to the store, you didn't get the item. That was the difference between buy now and pay later and layaway. Layaway, you didn't get the item until you paid it off. And I remember getting a really nice suit for work on layaway. I think it took me 3 months to get this beautiful suit. And that was responsible. I mean, at some level, it's like, okay, I don't get it until it's paid for.
Yeah.
Buy now, pay later. There's been studies that show people overspend. It creates because you see $15 instead of $60.
Right.
And then your trigger mechanism of, it's on sale kicks in.
That's true.
And it's really not. And then just like you brought up the streaming, when you add those up every month, that's what's happening with buy now, pay laters. People aren't seeing then how many of these are piling up, how much you're spending. And if you don't pay it back on time, there's all kinds of penalties. So I think it makes it way, way, way too easy. And I would also encourage like my family friends to avoid it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And you say layaway, and it's so funny. I've not heard that in so long, but I just remember my kids' Christmas. I would go and put it in layaway, and then, I'd pay towards it as I would get paid, and then I would go pick it up, and that's how I purchased Christmas. And so, that was I think it was really helpful to especially people that during Christmas time, it's just a stressor anyway. And so I do think that was very helpful. But you're right, it was responsible because you didn't get the item until you paid for it. So, it made you work towards that. I do think that immediate gratification of getting something and it's not totally paid for, that does give me a little heartburn, and it makes me think, I don't know. And like you said, as they pile up, I think you can really snowball that and it could get you in trouble. So no, I agree with that. What's a financial goal that you've achieved that you really felt was rewarding?
One of the things I wanted to make sure that I mentioned was saving for retirement, I think, is something we should not be telling young people, because I even fell into the trap when I was in my 20s and 30s. Was retirement was like my parents and my grandparents, like I am so far from being that old. I'm going to live for the now. I don't need to save for retirement. I put it off, right? I
Yeah.
did. I seriously put it off. And an employer of 401k where an employer matches contributions
Mhm.
is the easiest money other than, equity in a home. That's my number two. Let
Mhm.
let your employer pay you that extra money, get it in a 401k, invest it. If you look at, as long as my money's been in 401k, it's got its ups and downs, right? I mean, it's kind of like savings. Stop watching it.
Don't look at it.
Don't look at it. Just don't look at it because you'll make bad decisions. If you look at it, you'll be afraid. So that's another thing I only just occasionally take a peek at, but I'm of that age now where I get to do catch up money and I can put as much, I think this year is like $31,000 in 401k. And since I've qualified for the catch up years, I put the max in and I'm really proud of that I'm able to do it. And that the employer match, and then every once in a while I pick because we're doing better in the market right now. Every once in a while I peek at it, and I think, man, that is big time peace of mind for when I want to retire. And now that I'm close to it, so my advice for young people, it's not retirement. It's not about retirement. 401k is a really smart way to save money, period. Just a super smart way to save money, period. So if you think about it, if I just put it in my savings, and just save for a rainy day, blah, 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 or I get the tax advantage of a 401k and my employer is giving me free money and the market's going to pay me money. So that is a great way to save. And you know what? Sometimes people have had to tap into their 401k, and yes, there's a penalty. But if you start early, the reason people tap into it is because they will have a financial crisis in their lifetime.
Right.
I mean, a complete crisis. And you hear, well, we had to pull money out of our 401k, but I always feel like, but they had it.
Right.
They had it. So they were able to get through a crisis. So I think we need to stop saying save for retirement to young people because I tuned out that language and I regret it. But now I'm really proud of just saying, okay, I have a central theme. If I don't see it, I don't spend it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's fantastic. And it is one of those things that I tell some of we're blessed to have younger employees. They energize me. They're fun. I think they sometimes get a bad rap because they're hard workers, and we're lucky to have a younger staff. But that is one of the things that I try to encourage them to do because, like you, I started a little bit later in life. I felt like I needed every bit of my paycheck to care for my family. Yeah. And so when I did start to just put a little bit in there, I never did put the max until I got, older. And now we talked about it earlier. I'm going to be 50 this year. And I'm like, oh, I really want to retire one day. I really do want to do that. And so I do put in the max that I can as well. I think it's extremely important to start young. It's one of the things I talk to my daughter about. I encourage our staff here because we do a match as well. And one of the fun things that we do here at Acclaim that I'm very proud of is if we meet our goals, we do a discretionary deposit into your 401k. So it's almost like a profit share. So they're going to get 4% of their salary put in their 401k, whether they contribute or not. And because I know that retirement and, like you said, that money, it is going to be needed one day, and it happens quicker than you think.
It does. Yeah. And I live in a community now in New Mexico that is probably 80% retired people. And I have a lot of friends now, that are retired who are living on Social Security, who didn't have a real good savings, plan. And the fixed income, as it's called, it's paycheck to paycheck when you're young, and when you get old, they call it fixed income. But they're living on Social Security and not that much. And when we look at, even if we wait till 67, what my Social Security is, it's not that much, really. And so do I want to be in a position where I am bound to that dollar amount?
Yeah.
My lifestyle is dictated by that dollar amount. And that's why it's super important to, and retirement, it looks different for everybody. For me, actually, I'll never just like do nothing retirement. I'm going to volunteer more in my community and, all those kinds of things. But it'll sneak up on you quicker than you think. And then it's too late.
No, I agree. I used to be the youngest person in the workforce. Like I was always the youngest person at the credit union. And now I'm the oldest. So I don't really know how that happened, but it's so funny because it happened in just like a snap of the finger. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm 50. Like, wow. Like it's hard to believe. I'm like, I'm gonna be 50.
I know.
Like, really?
How did that happen?
How?
I know. Well, and 50 is when I turned 50, you can now see that you kind of come over and you can see the finish line, right? All of a sudden it's like, it's not that far off. And I turned 63 in 2 months. And, so my financial finish line potentially it could be pretty close. I love what I do, and I don't see myself stopping working, but you do start thinking about, I get AARP offers in the mail all the time.
I do too.
Now.
I do too.
And I still haven't joined. I don't know why everybody says you should. I just feel like that will make me officially old.
I know. I can't do it. I can't. My grandmother was a beautiful person, and she told me because she always dyed her hair. And I didn't know if it was gray or white, or I had no idea. But she said, I will never not be blonde. And I said, you know what? I like it. I'm probably never not going to be blonde either. So I'm okay with that. It's
because then she's officially old.
Exactly. And that's the way she felt. And she volunteered at the soup kitchen. Again, she was a wonderful human being. I mean, when her and my grandfather retired together, they started working on the same day and they retired on the same day. They were a true love story. And it was a great example for me. And so to watch that it was really great. But the last thing I have for you, and one of the things, this is a sneak question, so I didn't prepare you for it. However, who would you say has the most influence on you as far as goal setting for financial or just goals in general? It doesn't necessarily have to be financial, but who in your life would you say, you know what, they have really inspired me?
Actually, I gotta say, my husband, we've been together 25 years, and it is a second marriage. But he was so smart. He's a CFO. He has a finance degree. He grew up poor, right? He grew up very poor. And when he started working in credit unions, he also works in credit unions. Nice. And he was one of those just like paid himself first, put money in 401k. I mean, thank God he did all that, right? One of the things which I will say has worked also really well for us, though, is we have always had separate accounts. We are joint on one another's. We've got a will, we've got all that kind of stuff. But we've always kept our money separate. And that has been, that I would recommend that for people because he doesn't know how much I spend on my hair.
Right.
He doesn't. And there's certain things like I don't have to ask permission. We have joint savings, like I told you, the travel account, and we do a lot together. But when it comes to everyday spending, we don't get in, we don't know, what each other. And I think that's really good. But he really inspired me, kind of kicked my butt when we got together about, Denise, you haven't been that wise with your saving. And I feel like, and here's the other thing, I feel like I want to be an equal contributor to our retirement. And I want to be an equal contributor. Like we call it halvesies, like with the windows, we go halvesies on it. And for some people listening to this, they might think it's insane, but it makes for a much better relationship.
No, we are kindred spirits. It's exactly how we run our household.
Really? Okay.
I have my account. My husband has his. We are obviously joint. If he wanted to see whatever he could, he could. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what I do. As long as, so we have joint, accounts, but he has his account, I have mine, and then we have a shared account, and that was the one I was referencing earlier that I rarely even look at. But that's the account if we take a vacation, We both contribute to that account, and that's kind of how we spend that. And we kind of talk about it too. If it's, if I feel like it's something a little bit more or less, and I'll say, do you want to put some more in, and we'll kind of talk about, having that. But one of the things that I find so funny, in my first podcast, I snuck that question in with our first guest, Scott Baxter, and he said it was who inspired him was his wife. And so for you to say your husband, I mean, we're getting on a trend here. And so now with my next guest, I'm going to be very curious who they say, because what, I find that's very special. That, two different individuals, but your spouses inspire you. And that gives us hope too. And so,
because money is one of those things that can break up a marriage. The different opinion on money and fights about money has been proven to be one of the nails in the coffin of a lot of marriages. Yeah. So being able to, I think, it makes me happy that you have the separate accounts too, because, that's for a two working, spouse.
Right.
We both work, right? And the other thing, in our 25 years, there have been times when I made more money, times when he made more money. It kind of goes back and forth.
Exactly.
It doesn't, there's no ego tied to any of that, thankfully. And it's just us as a team working towards our goals and making decisions together on where we're going to spend our money. And I feel personally, as an independent woman, I think that's part of it. And it was alone very much. A lot of my adult life was, I can make it on my own.
Yes.
I can. A lot of people get trapped in a relationship because financially they can't get out.
Yes.
And I think that's super important for women to have their own identity and ability to control and spend their own money.
Yeah, it is control. And I think it is very important as well. It's something that I would definitely promote. And I do think that it's, anyone who would listen to this and view it different, to me, it makes for, like you said, a better partnership. I don't think it's anything exclusive. It's just, for me, it's been a better partnership. So, I definitely agree with that. I have truly, truly enjoyed our time today. I just, for our listeners, I listened to Denise at a conference. It was actually a management school that I went to. And once I listened to her, I came back and I thought, man, I really want to just change the world. Like, she is such an inspiration. If you've never heard her speak, she is a fireball. Denise, I look up to you. You inspire me. And I hope one day that I can be on the same level of Denise Wymore. She's fantastic. So
I'll tell you, I was so honored when you asked me to be on the show, and knowing that, I love credit unions. I love members. I love everything. The people helping people mantra has always guided what I've done in my life, both volunteering and working in credit unions. And I hope this person helped some person listening, because that's really good.
And that's one of the things they asked me when I wanted to start the podcast. They said, so what is your objective? And I said, if I can change one person's life. Yeah. So if something that we say on this podcast can help someone change their life in a way, that's really what I'm looking for. I don't actually need notoriety. I don't, it's just not something I need, but I do want to help people. Yeah. And, that's really important in everything that I do, whether, it's something that I write or, with the podcast or just serving our members. We just want to help our members, our community. And it's people helping people always. So, and it's people helping all people. And that's important too. Yeah. And so I thank you so much for being on our podcast. And hopefully I will have you on again, and we will talk about another subject, because you've been a fantastic guest. And I think you've done a great job making financial concepts make sense. So thank you.
It's been fun. I mean, it seems like we have a lot in common. So it's been really fun to talk to you on this level, not just, casual.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please visit us at acclaimfcu.org for more valuable resources. Remember to click the follow or subscribe button to make sure you don't miss future episodes.